It's time for On Point with Julian Phillips.
Well, welcome to On Point. And boy, what a few weeks. It has been a whirlwind of activity here on the COVID-19 front. Of course, Black Lives Matter. We've seen a lot with people moving Confederate flags and statues, the whole thing, the Bubba Wallace dilemma. And of course, President Trump dealing or not dealing with either COVID-19 or police reform in this country. But we've also seen a coming together of people. We've seen a overwhelming number of white people joining the Black Lives Matter protest, not just here in this country, but of course worldwide. We've seen other ethnic groups coming together, genders, all sorts of things in this fight for recognition, for unity, and most importantly, for justice. So to that end, we want to talk about a number of positive things that are going on amidst everything that's going on crazy at this point. And I've got three distinguished guests that have agreed to join me and talk about this discussion and have put together what they call a joint declaration. I want to introduce Michael Gardner. He's the president of 100 Black Men, John Wayne, who's the president of the Asian American Development Center, and Frankie Miranda, who's with the Hispanic Federation. He's president. Gentlemen, all thank you and welcome to On Point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I want to open this up and talk about this joint declaration, what it actually means, and what you expect to accomplish by it. I guess, Michael, you can start off with this.
It's great. Thank you. And thank you for bringing information to the public and the people. And I just want to say that, you know, when you start talking to each other and not at each other, you understand that you have commonalities. And the Black community, Asian community, and Hispanic community, we fight daily battles in this country in order to make it to mainstream America. All lives matters, but Black lives matter, Hispanic lives matters, and Asian lives matter. And so all we're asking for is an opportunity to work hard and become a part of the so-called American dream. And it appears to me that we have an issue of fighting generational battles. We fight the same battles every 20 or 30 years. And the frustration is that we're fighting the same battles as our great grandparents. And if we're not careful, our grandkids will be fighting those same battles.
There's an old saying, as much has changed, much has remained the same. And John, I understand that you were the instigator of this, and not in a very good way, of bringing this trio together. Tell us how this all came about.
Right. Well, when in March, when the COVID-19 started hitting New York area hard, and also then the anti-Asian biases started happening across the country, and so I reached out to Michael and and the Hispanic Federation, start talking to them about that we want to join with them and in support of the anti-Asian biases, and they have very quickly signed on and in support of our effort. And so that we're beginning to really reach out to the corporate community and try to get the message out to the corporate community that we want them to also work with us to support the anti-Asian biases. And then when things issues started popping up, and we certainly continue to follow this joint declaration that we continue to work together and in supporting the whole movement in the Black Lives Matter.
Racism has no bias, just like the COVID virus has no bias. There are no boundaries there.
Yeah, right.
And I remember this movie that I went to see with my wife one day with a group of friends in the theater out on Long Island where I live, called My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And we're sitting there watching this movie, and you could hear people all about buzzing, of different ethnic backgrounds and stuff, and saying, "Oh, wow, that reminds me of my family. That reminds me of my family." And you begin to realize, outside of some cultural differences, this thing I call the human condition, we're all basically alike in many ways. Frankie, I want you to talk about this declaration. Some of the specific things that you're trying to get across to corporate America and others to show that you're unified in terms of justice and also unified in terms of the commonalities that we all share as human beings.
Well, basically, we are saying to everybody that we stand without any question, that we stand with our African American Black brothers and sisters in this fight. There is no space for racism. Period. End of the sentence. So it's very interesting because for many years, all our communities have been working on issues of health disparities, economic disparities, social disparities. But suddenly people, because of the pandemic, because of all the social justice claims and actually the fight for social justice and reform, people suddenly have realized, well, oh my God, all of this is happening. It's just basically the curtain has been really open. And what I feel that is happening is that we are starting to realize, many of us that have been in this for many years, but many other people in our communities, that there's still a lot of more work that we need to be doing, that we cannot rest and just basically feel that everything is already done. We need to continue fighting. We need to reaffirm in our intentions. And we need to know that, if you look historically, African Americans and Black leaders have always counted on brown and other communities of colors for the movement. We have been part of this from the very beginning. But when we have a national rhetoric that is basically so poison against any communities of colors, indigenous communities, Black, brown, Asian, whatever community that is not the white normative in this country, suddenly people are realizing this, we are all in this together. The system puts us to compete for resources, for for the limited housing, for limited healthcare services. But we are in this together. It is the system that have tried to convince us that we are not.
And this goes across not just racial lines, but gender and sexual preference as well. A lot of folks have come out against that too. The Black Lives Matter movement. There was a big protest in New York City and in Brooklyn, and I think around the nation, on transgender violence as well. Being that as it may, though, gentlemen, this show is called On Point for a reason. I spent 4 years battling the hard right when I was a host on Fox News. I was by myself for the most part because the Black community didn't follow me over to that network. I had to deal in those trenches by myself for 4 years, and I never lost a fight. But I will say this, being on point, my concern is, and I think a lot of people's concern is, joint declarations are good, and I'm so glad you're doing this. But specifically accomplishing what? Because you have corporations now, some of them throwing off Comcast, $100 million is a drop in the bucket for what? Jobs, equal access. These are the things a lot of people are really looking for. So when it comes down to getting away and erasing the rhetoric, we've got some concrete things that we all need to see accomplished so we can see some sort of a level playing field. Are you dealing with corporations to make sure that there are people of color, Asian, Hispanic, Black executives in the upper echelons of Fortune 500 companies as for a start?
Right. Well, I think Michael and I, and also Frankie's predecessor, Jose Calderon, we were together on a Asian American Business Roundtable conference 2 years ago, and we were talking about how this new majority coming together. And because we have to realize that for the three community, the combined purchasing power of the three community is over $4 trillion. And that's the fourth largest economy in the world after US, China, and Japan. So we have to begin to understand that we have the resource and power. If we use it wisely, then we can achieve a lot. And then the corporation will recognize that and then beginning to deal with us in earnest and seriously.
That's something really crucial that you mentioned, John. And Michael, I want to talk about that with you too. In my church, we're talking about the significance, the importance of keeping money in our communities. Of course, we just witnessed Juneteenth. Of course, Trump being in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Greenwood massacre there. That community was so successful because they kept dollars circulating in that community, something like 7 times around before it left. How do we, even with, and being unified as groups, also being aware of the fact that we need to keep money in our community, so therefore that empowers us. What is the 100 Black Men doing in that effort, Michael?
Yeah, so I'm a great spokesman for that. Although I'm from Harlem, I grew up in Chicago. Chicago is the most segregated city in the country.
Yeah.
And in Chicago, when I was growing up, the black businesses, they had a captive audience. And so the black business people started selling their goods and services, not only citywide, but regionally wide, nationwide, and then worldwide. So in 1980, if you were in Nigeria, you may have seen a Ebony magazine, Jet magazine, or Johnson Hair Care products. And that's what segregation did. It created black wealth in the city of Chicago. And as far as the founding chapter of the 100 Black Men, we are dealing with corporations. So for example, we signed a big deal with the National Football League. They wanted us to help them identify black male college students who are majoring in sports management and sports medicine as a way of assisting them in integrating the National Football League. Right. And so we are establishing partnerships with major corporations, cities. So we have a contract via the city of New York where we are developing and briefing black businesses. And so we understand that job creation in the black community is going to focus on access to capital and contracts. And so we are doing that as we currently speak right now.
Singularly, Frankie, I want you to answer this question for me and give us some insight into what's going on in your community, not just here, but in Puerto Rico, where they're still being ravished by, past hurricanes, earthquakes. What can the administration do? And also, what can Blacks do? What can Asians do to put some pressure on this administration to make sure that our citizens, our American citizens over there, are taken care of?
Julian, you make a great point here when you say American citizens that just happen to live in the island of Puerto Rico. This administration have proven that they have a problem with communities of color. It happens in the disproportionate way that these pandemic have hit communities of color. The way that this again, the national narrative against Asians, and then you go to Puerto Rico, and already Congress have done its job to approve relief monies for Puerto Rico, for the American citizens that happen to live in the island of Puerto Rico. And this administration have blocked these funds over and over illegally because they have been already approved by Congress. Congress approves aid for American citizens for different jurisdictions after disaster. Why Puerto Rico is any different? And this is when you see the need for us to come together. This is no longer a Hispanic or an Asian or a Black issue. We need to come together. We need to take this energy and continue working together. Like, when there are resources, we are already sharing resources. We're working together on programs. And again, it's all about continuing reminding people that this fight, we are all in it, and we need to be successful together.
You've already been on for 13 minutes. We're almost to a close. Gentlemen, this has been a great conversation, but I think I want to close in part by saying and asking all three of you this. Do you think that the George Floyd protest, not the protest, but his murder by Minneapolis police has really sparked a protest in this country and around the world that is really going to bring about some meaningful change? Or do you think this all just may die down? Do you see something different here as a result of what's going on in this country right now?
Yes, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm part of the Eric Garner family, and in 2014, when my cousin was killed, we thought that would never happen again. And so when we saw this happening a few weeks ago, the family was like, here we are again. But the lesson that was learned in that is that the leadership in Minnesota immediately fired all officers, indicted them, and arrested them. Eric Garner's mother, Gwen Carr, is the strongest person that I know, who was out there for 5 years fighting for the rights of her late son. And we finally got the officer fired, but it took 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, to say the least. John, I want you to chime in quickly as well as Frankie.
Well, I tell you, I think we will continue to work on this project to support small business in our community. At the same time, we want to continue to communicate with each other. I think that's very important because in the past, because for lack of communication, the understanding, we didn't get a chance really to work together. So I think we wanted to, the communication is very important. We need to start doing that and continue the path that we're on, and to work with each other to support the business in our community.
Frankie, you have the last word.
I think that we're living a historic moment. It's happening right now in front of us. People are undusting legislation that have existed for many, many years. As Michael said, there have been recent fights, long fights, and people are making this happen. We have all these elected officials, stakeholders talking about this, and the collaboration that we have together to work with small businesses, all these three nonprofits together working to support emergency grants for small businesses. It's happening because companies are paying attention. So I believe that change is already happening, but we need to push forward.
Frankie Moran of the Hispanic Federation, John Wang of the Asian American Development Center, and Michael Gardner also. I got to tell you, I have roots in Chicago, Purdue University, and also Cairo, Illinois, so I know that neck of the woods very well. So it's good to have you all on the show, and I'm sure we're going to be visiting this again, but great conversation, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I just want to say that it's just gentlemen like these three from three different cultures that are coming together for a very good cause that affects us all. We can only hope and pray that with the persistent pressure that we will even see more change. There's a lot to look forward to. The fight is still long and hard. The road is indeed arduous. As Martin Luther King said, there are some difficult days ahead. But I do believe through hope and faith and the work of people like John, Michael, and Frankie, that we will certainly see brighter days. I just want to thank you for joining us on this edition of On Point, and we'll see you next week.